Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. We bring you thought-provoking guests and topics every week to challenge your thinking about leadership. Our aim is to help you become the leader that you wish you always had as we learn together and lead together. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honoured today to be joined by someone quite unique, and that's Orrin Klopper. Orrin is the CEO of an organisation called Netsurit, and Netsurit has had some incredible growth, both organic growth and inorganic growth. But the interesting part of this is the element of culture and how you manage culture when you are going through things like mergers and acquisitions. And I'm really curious to unpack this today. Orrin and I had a brief chat before we hit record, and I heard something really different and unique about the approach to M&A here, and I'm looking forward to unpacking that more with you today about culture, about purpose, and about how M&A can be done in a slightly different way, bringing like-minded people together for a greater cause. So this is going to be a great discussion. Really looking forward to it. So Orrin, without any further ado, please do say hello to our audience, and I'd love to know quite a bit about your background and what led you to start Netsurit in the first place.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, I think, when I was particularly in high school, I realized that there were some teachers that I just respected and I just was inspired by. And then there were some teachers where I was just an absolute nightmare. And in those days in South Africa where I grew up, you still got whipped. So if you got kicked out of class, you would stand outside and then the headmaster or deputy headmaster would walk around and then call you down to the office and then you'd get a couple of jacks. But I realized what happens one day if I get a job and I'm really don't connect with that leader that I'm reporting to and they don't inspire me. So that's where kind of the seed was planted. Then I went to university and I was massively disillusioned in the first year, thinking that university was going to want to know how I thought. And, it was going to be this real intellectual engagement and it was just memorize this stuff and regurgitate it. And then a friend at the time invited me to come and sell computers and engineering calculators for them. And I'd taken information systems as an extra major in my second year university, and I loved it. It just felt like it really was. Writing software was just a hugely intellectual and challenging dynamic that I really enjoyed. And that's really where it began. And that was in 1995. And I officially started doing this full time back in 97. And where the purpose in our business first took hold was in the lead up to Y2K or the year 2000. It was partly that dynamic, but the other dynamic that was leading to entrepreneurial small and medium enterprises being almost accidentally ripped off was that a lot of the technology that was available was built for larger organizations. So when smaller organizations were trying to adopt it, the dominant providers had experience at servicing larger organizations. And when they saw the costs of what was required, it just didn't work out to be an equitable solution. So we saw this opportunity to build a business that would provide honest, transparent, predictable service to our customers, almost like an insurance. And that's where the name Netsurit came from. It was like, we actually wanted Netsurance, but the .com was taken. So we went with Netsurit. And the idea was an IT support insurance offering for entrepreneurial small and medium enterprises. And that's kind of where the purpose of the business, that seed was planted. And that was 98, 99, leading in up to 2000.
Yeah, really interesting. And there was a definite need in the world right then. The few things that I'm hearing there, Orrin, the first thing is passion. So you found this passion around technology, around software. Then you found a place in the world that needed that skill. You found a market opening. You found a market need that needed to be addressed. And one that some of the words that you were using were values, ones that aligned to values that seemed to be important to you. But if I wind the clock back, I think there was something even more important back in those school days. You used the word connection and you used the word inspiration. I'm going to do an immediate call to action to the audience right now. I'm going to ask you to think about who was your favorite school teacher? Who was your favorite school teacher? And what was it about them that made them your favorite? Did you connect to them? And did you feel inspired by them? Just think about that just while we now unpack that a little bit more with Orrin. Where do you see the dots joining here between this word connection and inspiration?
You know, that book Marcus Buckingham did a good few years ago, called First Break All the Rules, where the Gallup Institute, and they've continued. So the numbers have grown significantly, but I think they'd surveyed about 1 million employees, staff, and about 80,000 companies. And the one key insight that came out of it was that people work for managers before they work for companies. Okay. So you could be in the most exciting department at Google, but your manager is really toxic and diminishes you, and you can't see a way of getting out of that. You're going to probably leave. You could work for a small 10-person organization, and that key leader absolutely inspires you, cares about you, is deeply interested in your growth, and you will be unbelievably loyal. So that was the one key insight. Then they came up with 12 other questions that sort of define employee engagement. And we've used that as part of our staff satisfaction survey probably for the last 15 years. And, by programmatizing our purpose, it has made knowing what someone wants in their personal life a key part of the line management relationship. Whereas I think in some cultures, the view is your personal life and your work life are totally separate. I don't need to know anything about that. Whereas what we are advocating, and I think a lot of progressive workplaces are, that they're actually inextricably linked. And there's a beautiful opportunity to leverage that to amplify both the success you have at work, but the success you have in the rest of your life as well.
There's some really interesting words that you're using again here, Orrin, to unpack it a little bit. So I think it's a common saying that people have heard, that people don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses, right? And I'm going to say that's almost universally true. I'm sure that there's people in the audience are going to say that, if your dream job comes up or whatever, yeah, okay. So there's going to be exceptions to that rule. But as a general rule, when someone leaves a company, they're leaving a bad boss, or a boss that they didn't connect with, to use your word from before, a boss that they didn't connect with, a boss that was a diminisher rather than a multiplier. And then business comes down to, all businesses are about people and our ability to connect other human beings. And what I'm hearing from you is that connection then leads to inspiration. And then when there is a common purpose, it leads to amplification. You use the word amplify. So we're seeing connection, inspiration, amplification, but a common thread through there was the purpose. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, look, you're one would call a very good listener. And the way you just sort of recap that really makes me think. I think it's powerfully connected. And that book by Liz McCune, or Liz Weissman and Greg McCune, multiplies so beautifully this idea that as a leader, we can multiply not just someone's intellect, you can actually just multiply their growth and the impact they have on the organization. And so it's always work in progress. I've never really felt I've just cracked it. I still to this day get hires wrong, but it's something we aspire to, and to have a workplace where people feel free to, what we do is we try and decentralize as much knowledge and information as possible. So we share our financials openly. We share how we're doing from a strategic execution. We dashboard our strategies. It's an open invitation for people to come to a monthly Stratco so that the thinking and execution can be decentralized. And but I love the way you recap that, and it really makes sense.
You know what I'm hearing now? I'm hearing some more really interesting words here. I'm hearing your values come through again. You've used the word openness and transparency multiple times already in the interview. You're probably not aware of that, but you have. So your values scream out when you talk, Orrin, and that's going to be part of what allows you to attract and retain people around you that believe in the things that you believe, because you're very open about, pardon, I'm using the word open, but you're very open about your values there. I think that's wonderful. And then what I'm hearing though, when you use the word decentralized, I'm hearing the word empowered. So in, let's say, a conventional or a traditional business where things are a little bit more closed and centralized, and the leaders are calling the shots, and the leaders are are trying to steer the ship, and they're doing their best, by the way. I'm not saying this from a point of view where they're trying to kill the business or anything like that. What I'm hearing that's powerful from you is this decentralization with openness and transparency is going to empower these people to go and amplify, multiply, and grow. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I look at the growth that we've gone through and, my aspiration of being a good dad and being a good life partner and being healthy and fit and my own balance, and then, delivering in my role and then coping with this growth that we're going through, letting go definitely caused some anxiety for me, because sometimes as an entrepreneur, and the fact that I am not as close to some of that detail, there is this old sort of patterning in you that says, okay, well, if you're not close to the detail, you're slacking and things are going to slip. And so, if you were to talk to some people in our team, in our leadership team, who I've had some tough engagements with probably over the last 6 to 9 months, they could feel this anxiety. And that book Founders Mentality talks about it. How do you so for instance, give an example. I'm obsessed that if you phone our service desk, it must be answered in under 10 seconds. And, and that's kind of part of our service orientation. And then I kind of saw that had maybe slipped, and then I overreacted, and, and then some similar stuff happened with some deals we were closing at too low margin. And then, so although I know for us to grow and for the business to grow and for me to grow as a leader, I need to let go of certain things. There definitely was a vacillation of it during this period. I'm in a particularly good place now over the last 2 months. But, I remember in the early days of the business, Mick, where I was so bad. It was like war. I didn't even know where we were going to get money for salaries. And it was just war. And I think there were 9 of us. And I'd walk past the boardroom. We had these small offices and there would be a meeting. And I didn't know about the meeting. I'd walk in there, I'm like, what's going on here? Why is there a meeting? And I was unplayable. Now, the more meetings I'm not in, the better, because these guys are world class. So it has been difficult for me to be honest and vulnerable. Like it has made me doubt my own leadership ability through this time, but it's the change of it and getting used to letting go and actually trusting the leaders that have filled that space, that as we've grown and we've had to focus on different things. And yeah, it's been rewarding and exciting, but also there's been a fair amount of anxiety too.
Thank you for sharing that so openly. And I can see the challenge there, right? So letting go, it is hard for all of us as human beings, letting go and the anxiety that you talk about. But the gift that it comes with, what I'm hearing in all of these things, when you do let go, it is a bit of a leap of faith, but it's then the trust and empowerment. And that's where magical things can happen, because we're attracting and retaining these people, employing them, whether they're partners or they're employees, whatever the case may be. We're bringing them around us for a reason, because we want to tap into their brains, into their experiences, into their energy, because there's only so much we can do ourselves, Orrin. But if we're then multiplying others, then that's when great things can happen. But it does take a bit to let go. Tell us more about how did you manage that? How did you manage to finally go, kind of deep breath and go, okay, I'm going to let go now. I'm going to allow those meetings that you spoke about. You spoke about going past a meeting room and getting anxious. Hey, the team are meeting without me. Why are they meeting without me? How did you get past that?
Yeah, I'll share 2 stories that kind of just illustrate. When I first moved to New York in 2016, I remember I was back in South Africa at one of our company meetings, and one of my colleagues, Brian, was running the South African business. And it's an all company meeting. We would do it either weekly or bi-weekly. And I just sat there and I just saw how the business was being run. And objectively, he was doing a better job than I had been doing. And it's like, I could just see it clearly. And that wasn't me being self-deprecating or anything. It's just Brian's a deep fixer. And, at times I don't think I've always done that. And then, as we continue to grow our business in New York and the US, Brian became more involved in that, and we promoted Eugene to run our South African business. And then I was in South Africa at the time, and there was quite a big rugby event. So I went, and they said there's a surprise guest. And, so I showed up. I had no clue who it was going to be. like absolutely no clue. And Eddie Jones was the surprise guest. And, and it's like, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even know he was going to be there. I can tell you now, I don't know if you've ever engaged with Eddie Jones, but he was unbelievable. And I came away, that was honestly, in my opinion, one of the best Netsurit events. It was probably the best Netsurit external event I've ever been to. I had nothing to do with it. So I would lean on these times where these guys just absolutely blow me away and inspire me. Even our virtual award ceremony last week, Brian did the conclusion. So gratitude is a big superpower of ours, and it's always something we've leaned into. And so Brian ended with talking about the Zulu word sawubona, which means I see you. And, so Brian actually implemented a thing we called wow moments, and then we morphed it to be more about sawubona and I see you. And then he just spoke about this. And then the response is actually shiboka, which means I exist for you or you inspire me. And I was so inspired. I felt tearful, so like I look at these guys that I work with, and even though I've always had this natural paranoia, which is, I think, been healthy to an extent, but it's crossed in sometimes being negative. And so when I did overreact in this last 6 to 9 month period, these guys were calm, they were grounded, they didn't overreact. They went, dug, provided the information. And the truth is, there was very little that was going wrong at all. And I was just overreacting out of my own paranoia and anxiety. So I think it's taken me 6 to 9 months, Mick, to just calm down and know that I'm doing the right thing and the best thing for the business. And to cap it all, I'm having more fun than I've ever had. And to this day, I absolutely love what we do. And I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to work in this team.
That love comes through in volumes. And I'm going to throw a few words at you again here now. And the word values is going to come again, right? So values around sawubona, around gratitude. I can tell that your organization is very values driven. And I think that speaks volumes of who you are. The other word I'm going to use now is superpowers, which you did use. I'm going to throw a story back to you. And this is what I'm feeling when I'm listening to you. One thing about your superpowers is we talk about humility as a leader, which is important, the ability to be humble about the things that we're not good at. But then it's also okay to own the things that we are good at. So we're looking at a bit of self-awareness here. So having that self-awareness that here I am, I'm Orrin, and I'm good at these things, but I'm not so good at these things. And you use the words that you stood back and saw that your counterpart was actually running a certain part of the business better than you could, right? So wonderful self-awareness moment there of seeing that. So here's the story I want to throw at you. I see this time and time and time again in businesses, and I want to hear your reflections on this, right? So imagine this. A company is growing and they're not very good at marketing, let's say. So they go, you know what? Let's agree. Let's bring in an absolute gun marketing person. We'll call them the CMO or we'll call them the head of marketing. Whatever we're going to do, we're going to bring in a deep expert in marketing. And then the deep expert in marketing arrives and they sit him in a chair and then start telling them, right, this is how we do things around here. And they start telling this marketing expert about this is what we want you to do. It's like, well, hang on a second. Didn't you employ this person because you admitted that you had a weakness in marketing and this person was going to help you fill this weakness? So why have you just employed them and then sat them in a chair and told them what to do? So I think that's the reframing or the rethinking that organizations need to make, is that when you bring these people in, be self-aware of your own strengths, but be self-aware of the things where you're not good at. Start surrounding yourself with people that are good at those things, but then let them do their thing. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, that's such a fascinating topic. I look, whenever we engage with an MSP entrepreneur, whether they're, a $3 million revenue business or a $10 million revenue business, I always learn from them. And, so you could say, well, we're much bigger. And because of that, we've got all the answers. And we definitely don't have all the answers. And, you use the example of a CMO. We brought in a fractional CMO and he had this, because I love marketing. So I'm not as involved in it now as I used to be. I absolutely love it. And, so I realized that I was driving our marketing team crazy because I get excited. And then what Jeff called it is these random acts of marketing. So next thing I come up with an idea, let's put a profile on on. And then people are going to think we can do project work. Then we're going to get a lead. And then like Yolani's like, yeah, Orrin, I can't even go. Well, she never complained. And it also took me time with Jeff to just let go, because we were spending an unbelievable amount of money on marketing, and I was trying to just, get the maximize the returns. But he came in, he pulled everything together. He coached and led our marketing team in a way that, so I think when I let go to him, I think in the beginning I was a pain. If he was on this call, he would say like the first 3 months, I was micromanaging it. It was a massive investment for us, a very significant investment, but we're a better business for it. But even when we do have a business join us and we acquire them, so we concluded an acquisition in Maine 2 weeks ago, that's a geography we don't have any customers in, and they know and understand that market. And, so we want to allow them, and for our organization and this new part of our organization, to focus on where can we create additional value instead of going in there and just trying to dictate, say, change this, change that. Don't do that anymore. Don't do this. And we try to make sure in the diligence that we find businesses where that fit is right. But yeah, you can bring someone in and then basically diminishing them to a point where they actually can't play themselves to their strengths will just end up in a failed hire.
Yeah, there's another aspect that I was picking up there as well, Orrin, and that is not just skill set, but then also, I'm going to say mindset, right? So I'm going to say that the person that's sitting in front of me right now, Orrin, is a visionary, right? So I'm going to say you're a visionary, you have great ideas, you are passionate, you're a driver in many respects. You need to be balanced with an executor. So if you're the visionary that has 50 ideas a minute, maybe a slight exaggeration, but if you have, 12 ideas in a day and 3 of them are outstanding ideas, but then you've got an executor sitting next to you who has the discipline to go, that's an excellent idea, Orrin. I think we can do that next quarter, because they're in the middle of implementing your last idea, right? So you with me? So balancing your team, not just in skill set, but now in mindset. How does that sit with you?
No, that's definitely, I think, a huge part of why we have been able to grow is the dynamic in our leadership team. There's such a mix of different skills and strengths. And, like take, for instance, Brian, my one colleague who I mentioned earlier, he's a deep fixer. You give him something, he fixes it deeply. He doesn't just shoot from the hip. And that complements, and I'm a great starter, but I'm not always the best finisher, And fortunately, we've got lots of people in our team who are unbelievable finishers. So that resonates very, very deeply. We did some of the Gallup Strength Finder profiling and that, and it's interesting when you kind of have a view of what your natural strengths are and then how that compares to people in your team. And then they do a group profiling of that and where the gaps potentially on where you're very, very strong. So no, that resonates very deeply, Mick. And it's part of, I think, when I think of this period of being anxious, of letting go of things, knowing that some people are actually much better at these things has helped me to let go. Yeah, it makes total sense.
All right, brilliant. All right. Now, I want to come back to these values again because it's come up a number of times. And let's say values drives behaviors, behaviors drives culture, culture drives results, right? So what I'm looking at here is values and culture. And you have grown incredibly and sometimes in short periods of time. I want to start with the organic and then we'll get to the inorganic in a moment. When you're going through those growth spurts organically and you're all of a sudden you got 50 people where you used to have 9, let's just use that as a number. How do you maintain what was good about that core 9 when you explode to 50 in terms of values, culture, and the ways of doing things?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we've had multiple times where that has happened and it challenges the whole business or everybody in that team. Because sometimes the rate at which we sign on a bunch of new customers and how quickly we can find and bring on the right people is sometimes the constraint, because when a customer wants to start, they want to start. And, obviously there's different parts to our business. We've got a professional services part. We've got a managed services part, which is annuity contracts. So that's definitely easier to plan and predict. Look, in those difficult times, we've definitely leaned on our purpose. So in the recruitment, we're saying before they make the final decision to join us, after we've made the decision we would like them to join us, we say to them, this is our culture. It does expect you to be vulnerable, to be open, to engage. And we believe if the Dreams program and the purpose of supporting the dreams of the doers does not resonate, don't join, because you'll see a much greater meaning in your work and your life if you join an organization where you do connect with their purpose and you do feel that you want to engage in one of the key pillars of their culture. So that's one thing we've done. And sometimes, to be honest, Mick, we've compromised that. We've compromised that. And what I have learned is nothing pisses off an A player more than tolerating or hiring C players. You'd think it would be something else, but I know in the times where we've gone through that rapid growth and we maybe compromise the quality of who we were hiring, or you compromise the quality of who you promote, that just is absolutely toxic. There's a great leader, Mark Lamberti, who said, nothing defines a culture as much as who you fire, hire, and promote. And it's so, so true. So yeah, at times we've compromised it because of the pressure of having to deliver. And I actually, in our EXCO meeting on Tuesday, there's been a dip in our client care, an obvious dip. And, I asked both our managing director for the US and managing director for South Africa to just kind of address that in EXCO. And we just had an unbelievable organic growth year last year, just unbelievable. And this exact reason, the rate at which the amount of work increased and the rate at which we could hire people, it was challenging. And we were putting some of the existing people under too much pressure. So the service levels did drop. They're still high, but you can see a little bit of a downward trend. And I suppose that's the reality of a growing business. And it's critical because there's a direct connection to how proud I feel about, as a team member of Netsurit, what we're doing for our customers and whether I want to stay at Netsurit. And if for too long I'm not feeling proud and we're not delivering good service, it could potentially result in me moving on. So there's a direct link to finding and keeping great people and protecting that culture and that service orientation, which enables us to find and keep great clients. Because if fast growth breaks the finding and keeping great people, so it will start to unravel. So this is the balancing act that we're constantly trying to do. And organic growth challenges that, and acquisitive growth challenges it in other ways as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. I'll just reflect on what I'm hearing there. There is some really interesting things there. I think it's a great reflection of we get the behavior that we celebrate, reward, and tolerate. So when you say be awfully careful of who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote, everyone sees those decisions. And everyone is looking to see what's being celebrated, what's being rewarded, and what's being tolerated. And it has a huge impact on their feeling about the organisation and their connection to the organisation. So that's really cool. And then in that hiring process, the things I'm hearing there is deep clarity about your purpose from the outset and clarity about your culture. And saying, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is why we do it. This is how we do it. These are our values. Do you connect? Does any of that resonate with you? Does any of that not resonate with you? And if it doesn't resonate with you, you know what? You're going to be happier somewhere else. Really powerful message. All right, let's get to the acquisitive or the inorganic growth. So you have built a business that is now growing very strongly through acquisition. How do you test culture when it gets to that? So how do you make sure, two things, how do you make sure that the acquired company is not going to destroy what you've already built? Or the other side is how do you make sure Netsurit is not killing what's beautiful about the place that you're buying?
Yeah. No, look, it starts with a discussion like this, so hypothetically you were the CEO of an MSP we're considering, as to join us, and you in turn are considering us. And I always say in that discussion, I can try and sell you something that's not true, and you could do that too. But the truth is, in time, the truth will out. So I try to make that very clear up front. Let's just be as open with each other as we possibly can. So through that, the values start to come through, and you can hear how that leader thinks and what some of their personal values are. So there's definitely a piece of the culture that I think has come and grown out of the value system of that entrepreneur that leads that business or founded it. And then, if I look at the first acquisition we did in New York in 2016, I think we made every mistake we could except go out of business. We did so many things wrong. And fortunately, there's a bucket load of learnings that came out of that. But I read this great book called Scaling Up Excellence. And he spoke about this different types of growth. And the one is almost like a franchise where this is how everything will be done. There's no maybes, ifs, or whatever. You'll wear this uniform. These are the hours. This is the food you serve, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have other organizations that are less dictatorial and less prescriptive and autocratic. And he kind of used a Catholic versus Buddhist metaphor for that, whereas Buddhist is more kind of, this is the key principle, but you can be open to interpret and so forth around it, whereas Catholic is more prescriptive. So what we've actually done in our approach, so to look back to the culture piece, so we look at the nature of the discussions with the leader and owner and whoever else we're able to have engagement with, and we start to feel, is there a fit here? Then in our approach to the thinking around the integration, we literally categorize things Buddhist and Catholic. And we forced, so like even with the Dreams program, for the first year, they'll hear about it, but we don't, unless they volunteer and they say, look, we want it now. We say, let's just, because what we want to do is the last thing is destroy the magic of what is being created there. And, in my mind, you get business leadership and then you get community leadership. And I actually think culture is a community form of leadership more than a business. Like I can performance measure a sales target. I can performance measure response time, a resolution time. I can performance measure profitability. I don't think culture can truly be performance measured. I think there's an outcome measure that comes back to staff turnover and dynamics and that, so like give you an example, Barbie, who runs our Cape Town branch, she does some of the coolest stuff from a culture perspective. And it is nothing has come from us. She initiates it herself. She's that regional leader. Like they've got like a meeting a month where they show up in their pajamas, or during COVID, they would do the meetings from their bed, so you had to sit with your laptop in bed and that's how you did the meeting. How cool is that? I didn't think of that. I didn't come up with that. I mean, I look at the guys in our New Jersey team and some of the stuff they do is just, so how do we, like try and when something cool's happening, like celebrate it and maybe throw some money at it, so that they've got a bit of extra budget to do something that more with it. But it's tricky balance. We want it to be decentralized. So the purpose is we're all focused on the purpose, supporting the dreams of the doers, but how that's lived by the leaders or those particular regions, we want to give them the autonomy to be able to decide on that. What's the flavor of it? What does it look like? So it's, in my mind, it's not prescriptive and we just don't want to break the magic that is there.
All right, there's multiple things I'm taking away here. The first thing was that the whole process is a two-way interview. It's not an acquisition. Here I'm coming in, aggressive, hostile takeover. Are we a match or are we not a match? And that's a two-way street. I love that. The second takeaway I'm taking is this, and you said it some time ago in the interview, but I'm going to bring it back now, which is where are we going to add value here and where are we just going to be interfering with the magic of what was magic about the place in the first place? I'm going to extrapolate a little bit. You didn't say this, but something that jumped into my mind, I also would be thinking, hey, what can we learn from them as well, like backwards? What can we learn about this acquired entity that we've just taken on? Is there something magic there that we can bring back into Netsurit as well? So where can we add value? Where should we not interfere whatsoever? And what can we learn from them that we bring back to the organization? And then the third chapter for me was this prescriptive versus guideline. And for me, the prescriptive is the values. It's the values. These are our values. And the guidelines are what allows this kind of, I'm going to call it community rituals, where your regional managers are coming up with these rituals that are celebrations that they've invented themselves. They become cultural rituals, but they're within the prescriptive, let's say, values of the organization. So they're inventing their own rituals, but they're still within the bound lines of what you would be happy with as a value within the business. How's my summary?
I love that. I love the way you captured that, and you're an unbelievable listener. But the way you threaded that together, no, you got it. And it's quite organic because we've learned from, and if I think back, I remember now that first acquisition we did in New York in 2016, I remember talking to Scott and he said, no, we use smile bags for client care. So basically it's a red, green, yellow. So if you've just red, I'm not happy, yellow, you the guys said, okay, green was great. And I was like, Scott, that's too simple. We've got this and this and this and that. You try and phone a New York customer every month and ask them how you're doing, you're going to get some profanity in your ear. You got to make it easy for them to give feedback. So we were wrong on so many levels like that. And I learned enough lessons now to know, okay, let's listen for a long time. Like I look at the business in New Jersey, we were too busy to do some of the normal integration stuff. And they outperformed. We integrated finance from the beginning, and then we did some centralizing of lead generation and marketing. They outperformed on their own. And then we introduced a new offering, which is called Innovate. And that team outsold every single part of our business. And we weren't even fully integrated yet. So there's something that happens where you leave their autonomy and their magic, but make the most of the value that just there's this amplification that happens.
Oh, I love it. We've got this empowerment going again and this decentralization and this amplification. I just love it. All right, so let's get to a key part of what you do. Let's talk about this dreamers, doers. Let's talk about the Dreams program. You've mentioned it a few times. Tell us about what that's all about.
Okay, great. So in 2004, one of the guys that's actually in our team in New York now, he used to be in our South African team, so in summers in South Africa, back then, very few companies had a proper server room. Okay. So the summers are hot. Their server, which was like an old white box, was in a closet somewhere. It would overheat and they would crash. Okay, that was before we were able to push the standards that we do now. And Sean had gone from one server crash to the other. He's sitting in front of the server and he wasn't typing. I got a call saying, guys, Sean's just sitting there and he's not doing anything and he's looking blankly at the screen. Long story short, Sean had burnt out. And so something in that incident made me realize, you know what? A lot of these guys, technology is their passion. And they're going to go home on the weekends and play with the latest technology. So we need to have a more explicit part of our culture that says we want you to be balanced. And we're going to make it a key part of the line management relationship. So I started using a journaling life planning tool then called Map for Life, which is basically the guy's a pastor and an engineer. Okay. As purpose-led as you can come, but he took the idea of setting your goals in your life from an engineering perspective, and it is bulletproof. If you go through this thing, you're going to come up with a plan on how to achieve everything you want in your life. But not everybody could do that because it can seem all-consuming. So I started using this tool. And I remember even in 2006, 2007, open invitation, I'm going to share how this tool works. Who wants to come? Had very little response. Then I attended a joint program between MIT and Entrepreneurs Organization. And one of the lecturers spoke about a book by Matthew Kelly called The Dream Manager, which is a real story about a business called Jancoa that is a janitorial services business. And they had this unbelievably high staff turnover. And they brought in the idea of a workplace that encourages you to not only do great work, but achieve what you really want in your life. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. So we launched the Dreams program in 2008. And really what it was, well, at that time, it was like a book like this. And then you had 10 pages and you had cut out of magazines and put on those pages what represented that dream. So a dream could be like, meet my life partner, or get to 12% body fat. Or the one guy has a picture of his grandmother climbing out of her pool. He says, fix my grandmother's pool because she loves swimming and she hasn't got money to fix it. So these are some of the goals and dreams that would come out. So, and then in 2010, we actually articulated the purpose, supporting the dreams of the doers. So what is the Dreams program? It's your top 10 personal goals and dreams visualized. Some of them could be work. There might be no work. Some people have 3 dreams. Some people have 12. Some people choose because something's private. They don't want to put it in there because we share them publicly. They're in a Teams folder. So we have over 300 dream books in there. And so you do your dream book once a year. And some years you do it more elaborately, and some years it's just a tweak because you feel like it's like business strategy. It's your personal strategy. You get put in a dream group, which is anywhere between 6 to 12 people. You meet once a month and it's strictly confidential and you share. There's something that happens when we share with another human being in an open way what we really want in our lives. There's something in the human spirit where you want to see them with that. And it creates connection that sometimes that, like you meet someone and you're like, I know that kind of person. I try not to do it, but there's a rapid cognition piece where you just think, okay, I get that person. But when we know a little bit more about them, where they've come from and what they really want in their lives and what they value in their lives, it just creates this beautiful connection. So you get put in a dream group, you meet once a month. And then we also have this thing called a Dreams Week in Advance, which is a little software platform we wrote where you capture the top 3 to 5 things you want to get done this week, no matter how crazy things get, and it circulates to your dream coach. No matter how crazy things get, you want to do those things. And the dream coaches get trained. So it's everybody volunteers every time you volunteer to be a dream coach. And it's generally a year or 2 year tenure. And then the last piece of the program is that we do a thing called a Dream Connect. So we've got people in Poland and people like in various parts of the world. Now, the funny thing is these people all want the same thing. They want to spend more time with their family. They want to exercise more. They want to, financially be better with their money. And so I love this program. And it's not perfect. There are people that are cynical. There are people that, would love to do away with it, but I absolutely love it. Very seldom do I come out of a dreams group meeting or a dream connect where I'm not literally I feel like I'm floating, It's just, like even if you're having a tough month and you get into a dream group meeting and a guy called Mickey runs my dream group and you hear his update and all the stuff he's got done and you're just like, damn, get stuff done. That's awesome, So yeah, no, it's a big part of, why I love what I do.
So I'm loving the balance that's coming through there, Orrin. So the fact that so many of the dreams were consistent across the world, but they weren't all work-oriented. They were about family. They were about all kinds of things. So I love that. I'll tell you what my takeaways, what was coming in my mind when you were saying. So I was hearing dreams. I was hearing people using the process to work out what's really important to them. So that's narrowing them towards true purpose, true joy, true fulfillment in life. I'm hearing action-oriented. So once we have those dreams, what are you going to do about them? I'm hearing accountability. Once I share it with a group, there's something empowering about that, but also the accountability that comes along with that. And then I'm hearing the word community. I think you called it Dreams Connect, where you're going to find your tribe. Where your dream, you might have thought you were the only one that wanted to do this with your life. And then all of a sudden, I think you said Norway, but someone the other side of the world's got the almost identical dream. You find your tribe. And when you find your tribe, you feel like you belong. And when you feel like you belong, you feel like you can almost do anything. Yeah, it's really powerful. There's one thing I want to ask is, what about limiting beliefs? Because there's a big saying that, limiting beliefs and fear kill more dreams than failure ever did. How do we help people in the Dreams program? How do you help people get past their limiting beliefs?
Yeah, that's always work in progress, without a doubt. And what can even fuel limiting beliefs, what can amplify limiting beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, is the lack of execution. And it's not looking in the mirror saying, well, because I didn't execute or I didn't put the energy into it, they'll almost be like, well, I tried last year and I didn't do it. So, well, let me just dream even smaller this year. So it's constant. We bring in people like you to coach and train our dream coaches from various parts of the world. And they've got different techniques. So we try and give the dream coaches a tool set to use. And then we have a dedicated dream manager who's done also some of the coaching certification where you could have a one-on-one with her. Or look, there are some people that are just naturally very, very good at this. So the one guy, I think he's a dream coach for 2 groups. I think his dream groups are, both of them are like 14 or 16, if I'm not mistaken, which is actually too big, but he's just so good at it and he loves it. Self-limiting beliefs is definitely something that is work in progress. You find some of the most talented people have these self-limiting beliefs. Me too. at times, where you feel like they're going to figure out, I don't really know what I'm doing, But the one thing you said, which I just want to go back to, which has been such an amazing thing to witness, is sometimes these young people coming into the industry, IT, they don't know what they want. And there's nothing in their natural life that's helping them go through an iterative process of refining and distilling that on an annual basis. And you can do it more regularly than annually. Like we say, you can change your dream book a month in. You can change it 3 months in. There might be a big life occurrence that happens. And it's fascinating to see. So the first job is like, get this car. And, then they meet someone. And then it's like, then there's a different golden dream. Then they have a child and there's a totally different golden dream. So there's this iterative dynamic that you can see where it's forcing them to say, what I really want in my life. Because sometimes you put something in and then you achieve and it's like, it doesn't really mean that much to me. And then it drops off, So yeah, I like that point that you made around that, because sometimes people don't know what they want.
Thank you for all that you do to help people find that, but then also find their path, find their support group, find their accountability, find their tribe. I think it's amazing, Orrin. All right, so that draws us to a close of our discussion. I'd like to take us now to our rapid round. These are the same 4 questions that we ask all of our guests, Orrin, and really, really interested to know your answers to these. So let's see how we go. What's the one thing that you know now, Orrin Klopper, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Sure. That's a great question. Great question. I think I would gravitate towards, from even at that age, there were really high quality people wanting to go on this journey. And I wish I'd known then that trusting and letting go to these people would have actually only accelerated the growth that we always wanted.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Orrin. Really appreciate you sharing that. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I do a lot of reading. Overall or right now? I'll give you right now because it's so top of mind. And, you get these really clever people that start a podcast. So like I listened to Peter Attia's, a couple of his podcasts, and if I could email him or phone him, I'd say, dude, we're not all scientists. Just tell us in a way that we can flip and understand. He just got carried away. And then his book Outlive came out. And, I'm a late dad. My daughter was born when I'm 45. I always wanted to be a dad, but this is my one and only child. And I realize now when she's 21, I'm going to be 66. Okay. And I want to be able to get down at her party and so forth and that. So this idea of my health and wanting to, he talks about the idea of longevity but being healthy as you get older and being able to do things. And this book, Mick, is just, and obviously the editor and the publishers have told him, dude, you need to dumb it down. It is such a beautiful story. It's an inspirational story. And I've taken so much from it as far as your overall fitness and health and your mental health. It's honestly one of the best books I've ever read. And I think, certain books are more meaningful at certain times in your life. And just being a dad for me is just one of the greatest blessings I've ever had, and wanting to protect my health, to be around and be with her in an active and present way for the longest time possible. So I've just taken this book. I literally do audio mostly. I did it 3 times.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, you were just the very embodiment of something you shared earlier in the discussion, which was our values I'll change that. What we value and what we dream of can change as we go on in life. And you just illustrated that. That was beautiful. What's your favorite quote?
Oh, let me show you. So I had it tattooed on me.
Oh, serious? Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, basically, it's surround yourself with the dreamers and the doers, the thinkers and the believers. But most of all, surround yourself with those people that see greatness within you, even when you don't see it within yourself.
Oh, wow. All right. That's going to go close to the top of my list now. That's an amazing quote. Yeah. Thank you so much, Orrin. That's pretty beautiful. Now, finally, there's going to be people that have listened to this show. And you know what? There's going to be one or two things. They're going to be interested in Netsurit and tell us about acquisitions and MSPs and the world that you live in. But then there's also this bookend at the end where we've talked about the Dreams program. People are going to be really enthralled in everything that you've shared with us today, Orrin. How do people find you if they'd like to connect with you and know more?
Yeah, so you can just, LinkedIn is one option. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me there, or you can mail me. My email address is orrin@netsurit.com. And yeah, we share very openly anything about the Dreams program. It's something that we would love to see more people doing, and it's a way to broaden the impact. And then for Netsurit, you can also go to our website, netsurit.com, or go on to LinkedIn. We're quite active on LinkedIn as Netsurit, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, thank you. And I do encourage everyone to do so. We'll put the links in the show notes so that you can just click away and then off you go. You can connect with Orrin. Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your experience, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your insights. It's been a really amazing conversation for me. I feel like I've grown because of it, and I know that our audience will as well. Thank you so much, Orrin.
Yeah, me too, Mick. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mickspears.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.